Paragraph 3.5 covers clearing and settlement services. Now, this is something that often attracts one question in the exam. And the clearing and settlement services for securities trading is CCAS, Central Clearing and Settlement System. Now, CCAS has a set of accounts, number 1, number 2, and 3 onwards, and we give details of what they are. Their number 1 account is for stocks for settlement, number 2, handling of stock dividends, and number 3 onwards, combination of custody, safe custody stocks, house investments, and securities collateral. Do I need to know these? Well, there was a time when they would regularly examine the account numbering system, so I'd be aware of it. I tell candidates to just always remember stock dividends is number 2 account. And if they play around with the numbering, hopefully that will guide you to the appropriate answer. Now, this diagram, the 4 boxes, is very important, highly likely to be something examined from this content. So let's go through the timing. Trading day T. Trade data is automatically transferred from the trading system of the stock exchange to the clearing and settlement system, CCAS. Now, clearing participants, and these are the firms, the exchange participants who also clear, they will receive provisional clearing statements. They will compare the provisional clearing statements to their own internal records, and if there's any discrepancies, they will deal with them with the stock exchange. Then T+1, final clearing statements are available just after lunch. And throughout all of this, it's the continuous net settlement system that will determine the outstanding stock position for each clearing participant. So you won't have a list of buys and a list of sells. At any time, you will be told your net position. So the buys and sells of transactions in the same listed stock will be netted off. You never net off buys and sells from different stocks, and that was examined once. And the process of the clearinghouse sitting in the middle between the 2 clearing participants and guaranteeing settlement is known as novation. Settlement takes place T+2, 2 days after the trade, and the trades are settled by electronic debit and credit entries to the stock accounts. T+3, the money settlement actually goes through the banks. The settlement of the stock and the recording in the ledger accounts is T+2, but the actual money transfer takes place T+3. And clearing participants who do not have sufficient stock in their CCAS accounts, that is, they're acting for the seller, they don't have enough stock in their account, they'll be subject to compulsory buy-in. What does that mean? It means that the clearinghouse will go into the market, buy the stock, and transfer it into the clearing participant's account at whatever price they had to pay in the market. And obviously, the clearing participant is going to have to settle that bill. With regard to discipline, for exchange participants, remember exchange participants, those firms that deal directly with the exchange, they will be held responsible by the stock exchange for acts of its responsible officers, directors, partners, etc. Frontline regulator of exchange participants is the SFC. Now I'm confused. I thought we were talking about the stock exchange. Well, the frontline regulator for these exchange participants in terms of code of conduct, the Securities and Futures Ordinance, everything to do with being licensed as Type 1 licensee, it's the SFC that deals with that. However, stock exchange will look at disciplinary requirements with regard to trading, clearing, settlement, and breaching of the listing rules. Let's now move on. We'll leave securities and move on to traded options. And from what I covered at the beginning of topic 7, traded options are securities. They're traded on the stock exchange, but the matching of the options uses HKS, and the trades are cleared through DCAS. 2 types of options, call options and put options. Now, a call option gives the holder the right, but not the obligation, to buy a fixed number of shares, specified stock, at the exercise price. on or before a specified date. Now, when we say on or before a specified date, that's an American style option, which is outlined just below. Put options is the other way around. They give the holder the right to sell, not an obligation, a right to sell fixed number of shares, specified stock at a fixed price, the exercise price, on or before a specified date. Again, that's the American style. If it was European style, you can only exercise the option on the expiry date. And as we're told, their traded options are indeed written on actively traded stocks listed on Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Now, with trading, we have two parties that we need to be aware of, two types of exchange participants. Now, with securities, we had one type of exchange participant. With options, we have two. We have the options trading exchange participant and the options broker exchange participant, the trader and the broker. Now, the trader has system access rights. That's the person who sits at the screen and accesses the options systems and entitled to access, whereas the broker does not have system access rights. The broker will have the clients. So the clients will go to brokers, place their orders to buy or sell options, and the broker will then channel those trades to one trader. Okay. Market makers. If you wish to be a market maker in options, you must first be an exchange trader. So you must be the options trader as opposed participant, as opposed to the broker. So an options trading exchange participant will apply to the stock exchange. The stock exchange will then review the trader's financial standing, trading record, etc., and then will approve if appropriate. Two types of clearing participant. Now, these clearing participants are applicable to securities and to futures. Just so happens we're addressing it here under options. Only option trading exchange participants may become clearing participants of the clearinghouse. The brokers cannot. Two types: direct clearing participants and general clearing participants. Now, the direct clearing participants can clear option trades for themselves and their own clients' accounts. So an example would be a major fund manager that has a lot of trades on a daily basis. It's worth their while to become a clearing participant. General clearing participants can clear option trades for its own clients' accounts on behalf of non-clearing participants. That is, options trading exchange participants who are not clearing participants. They must trade, they must clear through general clearing participants. So it's important to just get hold of that concept because that can easily be examined. Just to repeat, if you are an options trading exchange participant, but you are not a clearing participant, then you must clear your options trades through general clearing participants, not direct clearing participants. Now, with regard to clearing and margin, as I've said before, option trades are cleared through DCAS, and it's the options clearinghouse responsible for clearing the options, acts as the central clearing counterparty. With regard to the exercise of options, exercise instruction goes into DCAS with the resultant stock transactions passed to CCAS for settlement. Now, client margin calculations exist when you are selling traded options. If your client is selling traded options, they are exposed to risk because when you've sold an option, yes, you collect the premium, but until the option expires, you're exposed to the buyer of the option exercising the option. Now, the buyer will only exercise the option if they're going to make a profit. Who's going to make the opposite loss? The seller. So while options are still alive, the sellers have exposure, there is risk. And the exchange participant who is representing such clients must collect margin. So the points, bottom of page 7.15, the exchange participant must ensure each client promptly notified of margin and clearinghouse collateral demanded, as well as prompt delivery of collateral. The participant may treat the client as being in default if collateral not delivered promptly. This is to cover potential losses, and the exchange participant may insist on the client delivering collateral in advance of accepting the instructions. Collection of premiums, well, if you're representing the buyer of options, there isn't so much risk. The only risk is not collecting the premium, just like an insurance premium. In those cases, the exchange participants must ensure any premium payable notified to the client, that those amounts settled in cash promptly. Again, may treat a client as being in default if the premium is not paid promptly, and may insist on the client paying the premium in advance of accepting an instruction. We have daily mark-to-market margins, and that's where the position goes into a loss, and you can then have a margin call, and in particularly volatile conditions, you can have intraday margin calls. Default, I'd be aware of this. This has been examined. If an options clearinghouse participant fails to meet its financial obligation to the options clearinghouse, the clearinghouse take protective steps. Okay, so the clearing participant defaults. What can the clearinghouse do? They can close positions, transfer positions, and liquidate collateral, or they can use reserve funds, and the reserve funds are created when people apply, firms apply and become clearing participants. They must contribute to the reserve funds. And then the final backstop is claiming on an insurance policy. Now that was options. Am I likely to get many questions on options? You'll get, I would say, minimum of one, maximum of two. So one or two questions on the material that I've just looked at. The third area that we need to know, and again, you could get one or two questions, more likely just one, is futures, dealing in futures. That is the type 2 activity. Now, with options, we had 2 exchange participants. With futures, we have 4 categories, so very examinable. Trader, broker, futures commission merchant are in order of increasing entitlement. So the trader trade in futures for own account only. The broker can trade for his own account as an agent for other futures exchange participants. And then the futures commission merchant, the FCM, can trade in futures and options for his own account of other futures exchange participants, and the account of any other, so the widest remit. They can represent anyone. The merchant trader can trade directly with the futures exchange, but they're not a broker. They're not in the business of having clients for futures. They're doing it for their own use, their own application. Mining companies, airlines, those type of companies could act as a merchant trader. The clearing participants for futures, similar to options, in that we have the general clearing participant, and this time we refer to the clearing participant. Now, if we look at the second one, clearing participant can record, register, clear contracts for other clearing participants. However that would happen, I'm not sure, but they can represent other clearing participants, but not non-clearing participants. If you are a non-clearing participant, that is, you are a futures exchange participant but not a clearer, then you must clear your futures trades through a general clearing participant. That is what paragraph 5.2 is covering. Trading rules under 5.3, be aware of them, not regularly examined. 5.4, clearing and margin, the idea of initial margin. When you trade a future, either buying or selling, the moment you enter into your opening trade, you're exposed because the market can move against you, and very quickly. And you don't realize any loss on paper until you settle the futures trade through a reversing trade, usually. So to cover the potential loss, when you enter a futures trade, you must pay an initial margin. Now, if the equity in your margin position reduces because your position goes into loss, and you go past a level that we refer to as the maintenance margin level, then you must remargin back to the initial margin level. That means you've got to put more money in to cover potential losses. And as with options, you can have intraday calls in volatile markets. And then finally, under topic 7, we have trading and marketing, covering trading position limits, reporting requirements, marketing listed structured products. Read through the information. It is by no stretch in the imagination regularly examined, but be aware that there are trading position limits and reporting requirements. And that brings us to the end of topic 7. And as I said at the beginning, topic 7 is a very technical topic. Read through the material. Do not become an expert on securities, options, and futures, but pick up enough that you'll have a good shot at the questions that are set in the exam. And once again, the best way to prepare to solidify your knowledge in this area is to do the practice questions, maybe get them wrong, find out why you got them wrong, and through that process, you will develop your short-term memory ready for the exam. And as always, we have the questions waiting for you on the platform Examinator.online.